So first, what is gender-based violence? So it is any harmful act that is perpetrated against a person's will and that is based on socially ascribed or gender differences between males and females. So it is according to the Interagency Standing Committee Guidelines 2015. So gender-based violence or GBV is any act that harms a person because of their gender. It happens against a person's wills and is based on unfair beliefs about how males and females should be treated. So, gender-based violence is one of the most widespread yet least recognized human rights abuses. It refers to harm based on socially ascribed gender differences, and it has devastating consequences for victims and society. So, in the Philippines, GVV is recognized as a women's human rights issues. So, gender-based violence is a widespread but often unrecognized human rights abuse. It refers to harm caused by an unfair belief about the gender roles, particularly against women. GBV has serious physical, emotional, and social effects on victims and negatively impacts families and society. In the Philippines, it is recognized as a women's human rights issues and laws are in place to help protect victims. So, there are a lot of examples of GBV against women or girls: battering and intimate partner violence, marital rape, sexual violence, dowry-related violence, female infanticide, sexual abuse of female children, honor crimes, or early forced marriage, female genital cutting, sexual harassment in workplace or education, the commercial sexual exploitation, and trafficking. And another also is the violence against domestic workers. So now let's proceed to the scope of GBV. The scope of gender-based violence or GBV refers to the range of forms, situations, and people affected by violence that is rooted in gender inequality, power imbalance, and harmful norms. It shows how wide and serious the problem is. So it occurs in public and private spheres, at home, school, work, and it happens in both peacetime and conflict. It is both a human rights issue and a development issue. So, gender-based violence can occur in both public and private spaces such as at home, in schools, and in workplaces. It happens during times of peace as well as during conflict or crisis. So, GBV is not only a human rights issue because it violates a person's dignity and safety, but also a development issue since it affects education, health, and economic progress. GBV does not only happen in romantic relationships, it can occur anywhere to anyone, but it mostly targets women or girls and vulnerable groups because of discrimination and unequal treatment.
So now, I will be discussing the consequences of GBV. So first, I'm Joanna Margie Turaya and we are the group 15. So the consequences of GBV in health: unwanted pregnancies, unsafe abortions, STIs including HIV, injuries, depression, anxiety, PTSD, suicide, and death. So gender-based violence has a serious effects on the person's physical and mental health. Survivors may experience unwanted pregnancies, unsafe abortions, and sexually transmitted infections such as HIV. Aside from physical injuries, GBV can also lead to emotional and psychological problems like depression, anxiety, trauma, and post-traumatic stress disorder, and in extreme cases, suicide or death. These health problems may last long after the violence has ended. So next in social, stigma to families or communities, avoidance by community members. So GBV affects not only the survivor but also families and communities. Survivors may face stigma, blame, or shame from others, which can cause them to feel isolated. Some community members may avoid survivors instead of offering support, making recovery more difficult. This weakens trust and relationships within the community. And economic burden on health or social systems, reduced ability of survivors to work or participate socially. Gender-based violence creates economic problems for both survivors and society. Survivors may be unable to work properly due to physical or emotional pain, which affects their income and independence. At the same time, GBV plays a heavy burden on healthcare and social services, increasing costs for treatment, counseling, and support programs. So next, I will be discuss the survivor, victim, perpetrator. So survivor, preferred term for a person who has lived through GBV. The term survivor is preferred because it recognizes the strength of a person who has lived through GBV. It emphasizes resilience and the ability to continue life despite the trauma experience. So next is perpetrator, or the person or group institution committing or condoning violence. Perpetrators often first A. have real or perceived power, B. hold decision-making positions, C. are in authority. Every GBV incident involves a survivor and a perpetrator. So, a perpetrator is a person or group or institution that commits, supports, or allows acts of violence. Perpetrators often have real or perceived power, authority, or control over others, such as decision making, roles, or positions of influence. Every case of GBV involves both a survivor and a perpetrator. Next, I will be discuss the human rights. Human rights are universal, inalienable, and indivisible, interconnected, and interdependent. Everyone is entitled to rights without discriminations. So human rights are rights that belong to all people. They are universal, meaning everyone has them. Inalienable, meaning they cannot be taken away. And indivisible and interconnected, meaning all rights are equally important and work together. So GBV violates human rights, including right to life, liberty, property, right to physical and mental health, freedom from torture and cruel treatment, freedom of opinion, expression, and education. Gender-based violence is a serious violation of human rights. It denies a person's right to life, safety, and property, as well as the right to physical and mental health. GBV also violates freedom from torture and cruel treatment and limits a person's freedom of expression, education, and personal development. So, in summary, human rights are universal, inalienable, indivisible, interconnected, and interdependent. Everyone is entitled to rights without discrimination. GBV violates human rights, including right to life, liberty, property, right to physical and mental health, freedom from torture and cruel treatment, freedom of opinion, expression, and education. And that's all about for our report of the Group 15.